Have you ever heard of the deal that delayed the American Civil War by 40 years? Long before the first shots were fired at Fort Sumter, a crisis was brewing that threatened to rip the young nation in two. It all came down to one question: would Missouri join the Union as a slave state or a free state? Back in 1820, the United States was perfectly but precariously balanced. There were 11 free states and 11 slave states. This meant equal representation in the Senate, keeping a fragile peace between North and South. But admitting Missouri as a slave state would tip that scale, giving the South more political power and forever changing the nation's future. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. So, Congress came up with a plan, the Missouri Compromise. It was a three-part deal. First, Missouri would enter the Union as a slave state, just as the South wanted. Second, to keep the balance, Maine, which had been part of Massachusetts, would be admitted as a new, free state. Finally, an imaginary line was drawn across the vast Louisiana territory at the 3,630 parallel. In all future territories north of this line, slavery would be banned forever. The only exception was Missouri itself. On the surface, it seemed like a brilliant solution. Crisis averted, right? The nation breathed a collective sigh of relief. But not everyone was convinced. Former President Thomas Jefferson saw it for what it was. He called the compromise a fire bell in the night, a warning that a deep moral and political divide was splitting the country. He feared this temporary fix would only make the eventual split more violent. And he was absolutely right. The Missouri Compromise was just a band-aid on a gaping wound. As America pushed westward, the same explosive question came up with every new piece of land. Should it be slave or free? The compromise line held for a few decades, but the pressure was building. Then, in 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act blew it all apart. This new law threw out the 3,630 line and declared that settlers in new territories could decide for themselves whether to allow slavery. They called it popular sovereignty. The result was chaos. Pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers flooded into Kansas, leading to a brutal mini-civil war known as Bleeding Kansas. Just 3 years later, the Supreme Court delivered the final blow. In the infamous Dred Scott decision of 1857, the court ruled that Congress never had the right to ban slavery in the territories in the first place. This made the Missouri Compromise officially unconstitutional and dead. The Political Balancing Act had completely failed. The Missouri Compromise never solved the problem of slavery. It just kicked the can down the road. It bought the nation 40 years of uneasy peace. But the underlying conflict only grew stronger. 4 decades later, the reckoning that Jefferson had foreseen finally arrived in the form of the Civil War. It teaches us a powerful lesson. Sometimes, a compromise isn't a resolution. It's just a delay. The road to the Civil War began long before the first shot was fired. If you want to learn more about the hidden history that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.